So if I was to ask the question, what do political leaders in Great Britain do when things are going badly at home, would perhaps the answer be pick a fight with the French? Because of course that seems to be a bit of a national hobby, and that seems to be very much what is going on at the moment. So this week's news is all about the UK and the French spat over fishing rights. Now, you can see that this is attracting a lot of attention, it's creating a lot of drama. It's also interesting to see that the reporting, when it quotes the EU, voices a lot of frustration on the EU part. And I quote, they see this as two governments playing to their domestic galleries. And I have to say I can't really find anything to disagree with that quote. That does appear indeed to be what is happening. So when we look at this issue, this is not a negotiation. This is just politics. This is just showing off. This is, two prima donnas of leaders, trying to look big, trying to puff out their chest and sound tough, and whatever other phrasing we might want to use. But let's look at this a little bit as a negotiation issue. Let's try and figure out what should somebody try to do to solve this particular problem. Now, the first thing I always say to anyone when approaching these sorts of issues is what is it you want to achieve and what's the type of negotiation that is going on. I'll start with type of negotiation. Obviously, this is adversarial, and I'll come back to that a little bit. But those who are familiar with my videos would know that adversarial style negotiations are when the two nations do not align. And this might appear adversarial, but all is not as it seems. And I'll come back to that. Because of course the crucial question that has to be asked is what is it that we're trying to achieve here in this sort of negotiation type scenario, or non-negotiation really, just political showboating, but hey. So, and some people might make the mistake of thinking this is about fishing rights. And actually it isn't. That isn't what is trying to be achieved. That is not actually the objectives. Because let's be honest, a dozen or so fishing boats, it's not really what you might call anything other than small fry in this sort of business. They don't represent much economically. They don't really represent a lot politically, though perhaps they do. Because for the Brexit side in the UK government, there's a consciousness that the fishermen feel exceedingly betrayed. This is perhaps a little bit of a showing, oh yes, we're fighting your corner really, despite basically having sold you down the river up to this point. But I digress. So I come back to the question, what are they trying to achieve? Because at the end of the day, they could reach a compromise. They could actually sort this fishing licensing issue very easily, not anything complicated or difficult. But that's not the true objective. The true objective here is a showdown. And it's to try and portray, the political leaders of both France and UK, to try and portray themselves as fighting strongly for the national interest. That is the objective. They're not actually looking for any kind of solution to this problem. This is a problem they have actually created. So the solution that they're looking for is something different. So I come back to negotiation type. And I say that on the face of it, this looks like an adversarial style negotiation. Give us X numbers of licenses, and the French might say to the UK, and we will allow British boats into French ports. Maybe. And maybe that's what will be stated. But that actually not the objectives. That might be a compromise solution. But are these two political leaders, Macron and Johnson in particular, are they really looking for a compromise? How do they benefit? The answer is probably not. Not in that sense, not in a de-escalated type of compromise solution. So really, what they want is something showy, something that they can point to and say, aha, we won. We got the best of this particular deal. So actually, this isn't an adversarial style negotiation, because remember, adversarial style negotiations are when your interests do not align. You have completely competing different interests. But in this case, Macron and Johnson don't have competing interests. They have quite similar interests. And those interests, essentially, for lack of any better phrasing, is to look good for their domestic audience. So the solution that they're going to look for is some kind of fudge, some kind of thing where the French can say, the Brits have promised us all these licenses and they'll be granting these licenses to our fishermen. And where the UK will be saying, we stood firm and this Brexit agreement worked for us and allowed us to protect our national sovereignty. That's the sort of outcome that both sides are looking for. So actually what they're going to do behind the scenes is collaborate to achieve that. They will find some kind of joint political declaration. They will find some kind of sort of but not quite technical solution that supports that political declaration. But really the goal here is for both sides to essentially hold a piece of paper that they can wave around in front of their national media and say, we're not quite peace in our time, Chamberlain style, but something to that effect. So if you're going to negotiate or de-escalate this sort of conflict, that's just what you've got to remember is the outcome. So whoever is perhaps trying to broker a peace on this fishing deal, they won't be focusing on the licensing side of things, albeit that will be perhaps a side conversation, or that's what it'll pretend to be. What it'll really be is some kind of political solution that meets the objectives of both sides. That is what the negotiators in the UK and France will actually be trying to achieve. So this is my prediction on that particular solution. If Liz Truss is to be believed, then maybe this flash in the pan conflict might be resolved within 48 hours. But for now, I have made a prediction. Time will tell if I am right or if I'm barking up completely the wrong tree. So we'll watch this space, we'll see what happens, and I'll be interested to see if anyone has any alternative views. Thank you for listening.